We gotta start this off right.
All right, let's go.
The girls, I don't know if y'all been listening, but they've been talking about celebrity crushes.
Oh.
And I said, you got to get away from that, but I'm going to bring it right back.
Who was Alicia's?
Who did she say? Ah, man, I can't remember.
Dang, I'm going to have to go listen to
I
that.
just remember it
did
being
talk
about
about it
Ryan
the other night.
versus Ryan. Gosling versus Reynolds was what they started
Well, there we
with.
go. We're going to start with that. Ryan Reynolds or Ryan Gosling?
I mean, it's those two guys aren't even in the question for me. It's Brad Pitt.
Oh, man.
My
I know.
celebrity crush is Brad Pitt.
It has to be, man. It has to be.
What version of Brad Pitt?
Oh, that's a good question. It's so hard to choose.
We're talking dudes. This is
We're
awesome.
talking about dudes. I love it. Favorite Brad Pitt? I'm not
So I'll
gonna
help
be
you
thinking
out
of
a
so
little
many.
bit.
Yeah, come on.
Just Alexis's favorite is Fight Club.
Yeah. Fight Club is a classic.
That version of Brad Pitt's her favorite.
Legends of the Fall. Hard to beat.
Yeah. Legends of the Fall. I don't know. In terms of Brad Pitt, this is funny, but
Oh, this is
I like the older version of Brad Pitt more.
yeah.
So like
California kind of stuff.
what's California?
It's where he's a serial killer.
I've never
Is that
seen
new?
it.
Ooh, no, it's old. It's one of his first ones. Great. Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where he's like in a cowboy hat?
No,
He's-
that's
yeah,
Thelma
no-
and Louise.
No, he's in like a baseball trucker cap, and he's a hillbilly, white trash, lives in a trailer park. He's a stud,
Okay.
though, man.
Damn.
Dude, he's done so many good
Yeah.
ones.
I'm
It's
gonna
like
check
Snatch
that out.
and
Snatch is a good one.
Uh-huh.
Thelma and Louise. He's great in that. But let's see. Some of Tarantino's stuff, I think, maybe some of my favorites, like Inglourious Bastards and Once
Dang,
Upon
that's a good one.
or Once Upon a
Just
Time in
the
Hollywood.
roughness.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. I don't know. There's so many good ones. Moneyball, though, too.
Yeah.
So this leads right into one of my main topics.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's
Yeah, go
actually
ahead.
answer this question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Celebrity
You finish
crushes.
it. Are we sticking with Ryan versus Ryan? Or are we going
No,
the route we want to go?
No. But I also don't. Okay. I also don't think you can compare those two Ryans. Maybe from a hotness factor, but my mind goes to,
Comedy.
yeah, just like they're different. They're different actors, in my opinion. So I like both of them. But okay, what's your debate on Ryan versus Ryan, or what's your stance?
I got to go with my wife,
Which is
Ryan Gosling.
okay, yeah, solid.
I think he's got a good mix of being serious, like in his action, which he's not really serious, but in his action flicks, just being able to, right in the middle of the action, there's some funny stuff in there that I enjoy. But
Yeah. I just feel like there was like a Megan Fox thing at one point, and I was like, I don't like. I just didn't see it. I didn't get it necessarily. And then there's a Margot Robbie thing. It seems like now, which is fine. I think she's beautiful.
yeah,
Okay, if I was going to answer this question, celebrity crush, it would be based on the premise of like lovability, and that's like it's not. Yeah, so it's who do I like? Who makes me fall in love to some extent in a 90-hour movie or a 90-minute movie, right?
Oh,
And
I got you.
I think Emma Stone does that
Wow.
for me every time. It's like
Man, that
she-
comes up a lot, and see, she's one I don't get
Really?
at all. Yeah,
I
for
kind
me.
of like her. Yeah.
I just like I believe any character she ever plays. It seems like so. I don't know.
Well, yeah, stuff like that for me, it's hard to separate, the art from the artist a little bit. How much you've fallen in love with how talented they are as an actress, and yeah, man, it's tough. Celebrity stuff, because I don't know any of these people personally. You're just looking at them, but I don't know.
Who is yours?
Dude, it's tough. I used to be a huge crush on Keira Knightley growing up. She was in some cool stuff, and I like her mannerisms and things like that. But I don't know, man. I don't really have too many celebrity crushes. Anna de Armas, I've seen her
That's
lately.
exactly
She's
who
beautiful,
I just
man.
looked up. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, she's
I
very
couldn't
pretty.
remember her name.
See, I haven't
The
seen
Gray
her
Man?
much. The Gray Man?
Have
Yeah.
you seen
Okay,
that movie?
no.
It's got both Ryan Gosling and Anna, however you say
Anna
it.
de Armas, I think's how you say it.
Interesting.
What's your favorite Western?
Tombstone. Yeah, that's easy for me. Tombstone.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. I've got several, but
Yeah, I know.
Cowboys is one of them.
Cowboys.
With John Wayne.
Oh, yeah, like the original, man. It's solid.
Outlaw Josie Wells is
Ooh,
another really
good
good
one. Good one.
Yeah.
Quigley Down Under.
Ooh.
I don't know if that's really a Western,
Down
but that's a good one, man.
Oh, that is a good one.
Aussie Western, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My problem with these types of conversations is I always need like the list in front of me
Oh, yeah.
of like my 12.
Well, what was one
But-
that popped in your head that you just remember enjoying? Or
Man, so I grew up on Clint Eastwood,
there you go.
and so he'll always hold a place in my heart for sure. I also grew up on like all the classics, so anything black and white, is very nostalgic for me, or anything based in like that 50s era.
Yeah.
Recently just watched High Noon for the first time.
Dang.
Like, it's been on my list for a long time, but I've just never done it, and it was solid, man. Like, it's not typically what you would see nowadays as a modern Western, obviously, but it's got some things about it that I really enjoyed. Okay, but if I was going to say favorite Western, oh, man, I hate this question. But, okay, the things that pop up in my head are Hostiles.
Oh yeah, the newer one, right?
It's newer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dang, I'm gonna have to see this.
That's
I haven't seen
Christian Bale.
Yeah, Christian
yeah, it was
Bale.
good.
And let's see,
it. Kevin Costner has a new one coming out.
Dances with Wolves.
Oh, there
That's
it is.
what I was
I
going
helped
to
you
say.
out.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
helped you out.
So anyway, those two are probably more on the top of my list.
Did either of you guys see Bone Tomahawk?
I haven't.
That scarred me
I'm
for
putting that on my
life.
phone.
No,
Did
no, no.
Don't.
There is a scene in that I will never get out of my head. It's a horrific scene. I didn't even enjoy the movie at all. It's not what you think
Yeah.
it's going to be. I thought it was going to be, But yeah, there's a pretty horrific scene in there that scarred me for life. I think I'll never get it out of my head.
You're
Not
gonna have
worth
to
watching
describe
it.
it just
I
a
was
little
hoping
bit.
one of y'all had seen it. They hang Kurt Russell upside down and chop him in half, starting with his crotch, and they linger. It's like a forever scene.
Dang.
It goes. It's way too graphic, way
That's
too gross. I'm not into that kind of stuff. I've never been a gore movie kind of guy. Never, and you don't expect to see that in a Western movie. I'm thinking it's going to be a little Tombstone, just watching it for fun one night, and then it gets to that, and it's like, well, that ruined my
Then you
day.
can't sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that completely ruined it for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But Kurt Russell, man, he's the man.
Oh, he's a stud, dude.
So here's a topic that kind of ties all of this
Let's go.
together, and it can get deep, or we can just stay on the surface. But what's y'all's opinion on 2024, modern day? What's the measure of a man?
Oh, we've talked about this a lot because I deal with it in my work with, young kids, with youth age kids, high school kids. What is masculinity? They get sucked down the Andrew Tate rabbit hole, this deal of viewing women as possessions, or, they own their wives. And man, I don't agree with that at all, but masculinity is tough, man. What makes a man? Is it a successful job? Is it making lots of money? Is it being a big alpha dog and walking around like you want to punch everybody in the face all the time? I don't agree with any of that, but that seems to be kind of the prevalent mindset, at least with the young adults that I work with. That's what they're growing up with, that acting tough all the time and, kind of treating people with disrespect makes you more manly. And that's a hard thing to combat, to explain to kids that.
To me, it's
Yeah.
what kind of example have you seen or been around that amounts to what you're going to piece that puzzle in your mind? Like, what does it really mean to be a man? And obviously, we've got social media, movies, all these things that tell you this is what a man is, but truly deep down, I guess, like, what examples came to mind in your heads that you want to live up to?
Well, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a house. We didn't have a lot of money, but my dad and my mom loved each other. Man, they loved each other deeply. They spent all their time hanging out with each other at the house, laying on the couch, watching TV, cuddling, doing all that kind of stuff. And my dad is a manly dude. Like, he can do anything, work on anything, fix anything, grew up boxing. He's a tough dude, but he, that version of masculinity, he did all the housework, did all the laundry, all the dishes, cooked all the meals, did all that kind of stuff. It was never a thought to me that those kind of things weren't masculine, that stuff was women's work,
Right.
kind of thing. So, I don't know. I aspire to be like that. And that's kind of how I modern my life after. That's all I wanted to do, is be a good husband, be a good dad.
Yeah.
That's as far as my life goals went. And still, really, to this day, if I accomplish those two things, I feel like I've done well in life. And
see, I think
Yeah.
there's a strong wisdom in that.
Yeah, what's yours? What do you think?
I mean, I feel like my mind's going to go the easy way out, which is a good mix of a lot of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up with an awesome dad that was a great example of right and wrong, mostly right, which is good. And I think it goes as far back as our great-grandparents, like our ancestors, teaching and handing down things that you want to be and things you don't want to be. And then it's up to you to decide, is this good or bad for me? And, ball's in your court at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, it's a good mix of being strong, tough, all those easy outs, that you see in a man, but also one that you don't see often, and I think that's on purpose, is loving and caring and nurturing, in a sense. That doesn't mean you've got to flaunt it. I think it's that subtle humility. Like you said, you don't flaunt, hey, I'm doing the dishes, or hey, I'm going to vacuum the house, or this women's work. That's quote unquote. It's not women's work. It's a team effort. But to be, to be the strong backbone, I mean, you said it, I think, best, that being a good husband and a good father, and things that aren't in your control, just let them be where they are. Like, I don't know.
But even that, people are going to debate that. What does it mean to be a good husband? People say, well, you decide the direction of the family. You're the leader. You do all this stuff, and the wife is supposed to support you in all those decisions. And even in my life, I don't feel like that's how Lindsay and I operate at all. I mean, it's never like that. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't focus on leading, I guess, the family, or even, you said being an example. I can kind of see that. But we were talking about being manly, and that's that question I posed to you the other day. Like, biblically, who's more manly? Was it David or was it Jesus? What does it mean to be a man? And I think naturally we always want to say, well, David, he's a warrior. He killed people. He fought battles. But I think biblically, you got to look and be like, well, it's telling you it's Jesus somehow. It's telling you that somehow Jesus' humility and his kindness and his self-sacrificial love is what it means to be a man. And that's very countercultural, you know, to how we grow up thinking about manliness and being tough and being whatever it may be, you know. But that's where I ended up on it. What's your answer, Blake?
So, I grew up with a lot of strong men in my life. My dad is a great guy, and he's tough, and he's kind, and he was supporting, and he provided for our family. I think he was not emotionally available to some extent. Like, he didn't have an emotional language. And some of that is because he is one of 5 boys, and they grew up on a farm, and like they just worked.
Yeah,
and that was to him, like at the time, and to him, and what he was taught was a measure of a man is how hard does he work to some extent, and how tough is he, and like, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I love my dad, and I do want to be like him in a lot of regards, but I also want to improve on that and be emotionally available. But it's also because I have 2 daughters. And so my measure of a man is probably different than somebody who just has a bunch of boys. Like, I think my answer is going to be reflective of who I am not, because I always want to be the better version of myself, and that's always trying to strive for the things that I feel like I am not, or my weaknesses. And so I want to be emotionally available and present, and I think being present in every scenario, no matter what it is actually really manly. And I think having the confidence to not morph what I mean by that is like not be influenced by outside pressures, and being comfortable and confident with being who you are to some extent. I think people could take that differently, not what good. I mean with it, but I think being confident, man, and knowing what you believe and stand for, and also not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
I think
that's important.
I think we get into a lot of this stuff where men specifically, are taking themselves too seriously, and therefore have something to prove.
Mm-hmm. Life's too hard.
Yeah, man.
So if you can mix in a little bit of let's not be so serious.
Yep. And that, like, all of this is kind of rooted in this question we were having with a group of friends the other night, which was, you know, it was like, how do you not end up just like a grouchy or a grumpy old person? You know, like, how do you not end up that way? Because I think we see a lot of those people and we're like, man, I don't want to be that. But I think it's like, you know, you at some point in your life where like, I'm never going to be like my parents, or a good majority of us, where some people have great parents. And then you end up becoming like your parents. And so it's like you can think these things all day, but how do you not let the wearisomeness of life lead you to a path of just kind of being grouchy and senile and grumpy? What would you guys say?
I would say being spontaneous.
Oh, that's a good one.
You know, adding in a little bit of random fun.
Yep.
My biggest thing is my dad, growing up, we would travel. It didn't matter if, you know, we were in tough times where financially we didn't have a lot of money. We'd just go to Dallas and visit my aunt and stay for free, and just like, it didn't matter where it was. My dad and my mom made fun times for us, and that's what I want to continue with my kids, is
that's awesome.
Doing fun stuff. It doesn't matter if, you know, Powder Canyon's right there, or just anything spontaneous. Like, let's do this. And I think I can do way better at that also.
Totally.
I get buried in work.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is. And that's why earlier you said, I don't remember what you said about working hard and providing.
Was like how hard you worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a part to me that I think it's a negative aspect of mine that I get too buried in working and providing.
Yeah.
And I don't spend quality time with the kids
Yep.
as much as I should.
Yep.
And maybe I do. I just feel like when I stop and think about it, I'm like, man, I need to be present more. Like
Totally.
you said.
But there's always a version of like self-health too in that regard. Like, because I'm very similar. Like, I can get deep into a project and then it's like, oh, I don't have time to stop and, push you on the swing or whatever it is. Like, and that's sad when that happens and when I recognize that about myself. But I do think that there's a balance to it. It's like, I also know that I'm very much goal-oriented and I need to feel value, right, for myself. And sometimes that means like completing a project well,
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's a balance, but I agree with you. I think fun is a huge aspect of it. What do you say, Tanner?
Man, I don't know. I think I'm turning into a grumpy old man already. So I don't have the answer. But you said the goals, but I think the struggle for me is not finding my identity and my value, my worth in achieving something. You know what I mean? That you have that value and stuff regardless of what you do and how you achieve it. And man, I think our habits are what we turn into. And I think whatever we're intentional about, we grow in, whatever that is. And I think that's the deal. If you can, my frustration, my grumpiness comes from not being humble and being prideful about my own ideas and viewing people negatively and getting frustrated with people and things like that. I think that's what is going to turn me into a grumpy old man unless, I'm intentional about my habits and how I want to grow and getting rid of that aspect of myself that is easily frustrated and taking myself way less seriously, like Blake said. I mean, I think that really is the answer to it, but it's hard to do. It's hard to realize you're taking yourself too seriously.
I think the reason we had that conversation was because I think we were all like, yeah, I'm trending towards being a grumpy old person, and I don't want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I've had seasons of life and it was particularly, that's a hard word to say. It was mainly my wife saying, hey, like, and there was some fights or arguments, and it's like, oh, you finally get a glimpse in the mirror. You just get so busy or whatever, and it's like, man, I'm an asshole. I can be a huge dick.
Man, I have gone
and when you
seasons.
finally see that, and you're like, that's not what I want to be.
Yeah.
And Alexis, she'll probably hear this and be laughing because I really think about, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Like, and so, in creating habits and thinking forward of how can I be different? How can I, hold my tongue and not be a dick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we're just going to become more like we are right now if you don't change anything, So if you see yourself on that path of becoming a grumpy old man, you will, unless you change how you're living, just like anything. I struggle with frustration and anger, and the emotions are just habits a lot of times. I mean, sometimes you can't control, but the more you realize you're getting angry at things, the more you realize it just becomes easier and easier to get angry over little things. And the more you're making anger a habit, the more, it becomes a part of you. And the harder and harder it gets to walk in joy and have peace in your life, because it's so easy to take that path of least resistance all the time. That, oh man, this thing frustrates me, I'm going to be grumpy for the rest of the day, or I don't like how this person's doing something.
How your outside molds you into what you are and what you become, and like what you surround yourself with. Because when I'm at the fire station, there's been like a large amount of time, and you don't catch it at first, that everybody's bitching and griping and whatever else is going on. And it starts out as fun, like sport bitching is what we call it. And it's just kind of fun, but then it leads into this negativity. And you don't you don't realize it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh man, like we are in a dark spot. And it's weird. It's like, when did that even start?
Yeah.
And how long have we been that way?
Yeah.
And so it's a balance of adding in positive thoughts and positive reinforcement, whatever. I don't know the right words, but
yeah. You have an interesting window onto this, what makes a man, like conversation too, because of your career and what you see on a daily basis. And that's fascinating to me, because what I would say is, like, by nature, there's a statistic that says, like, women, after a spouse dies, women are much more likely to live longer than a man whose wife dies, because typically men don't have many friends. And so I think that that's a big part of it, is like, we men don't necessarily, our intuition or our nature is to not sit around and talk about feelings and emotions. And to me, that's also one of the things that, like, does make us, at least from a male standpoint, more likely to not end up grouchy and whatever, is the ability to sit with friends and have real conversations, and not surface conversations, and not. But I'm going to steal sport bitching. That's an amazing.
That's
term.
good.
But
it's used at the fire station all the time.
Nice. But yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, is just the ability for a guy
kind of venting,
I think the three of us, because of where we're from and where we grew up, this area is interesting, as are all areas. And I never pretend to think that, like, because we're from here, we have a certain thing that nobody else does. But what I do think is true is, like, we're probably from a long lineage of, or at least I am. I'm from a long lineage of people who, like, settled in this area early on the plains, on the great plains of the desert, and like, or the high plains of whatever, desert or the high plains, and cultivated the land. And so, like, some of my family were, what you would consider like the pioneers of the area, and they came out here, and it's very harsh conditions, and the ground is very hard. And I had this theory, because my grandpa, man, God love him, he's still alive. He's tough, and he's an old cowboy. But there was a season of his life, man, where he was a grouch and a half. And part of it was because he had back issues and back problems, and a horse fell on him, and blah, blah, blah. But, and so he was just hurting all the time, but he was grouchy.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I started, like, building up these scenarios. And then, like, the theory that I came up with was, like, he was hard because he had to work the hard ground of this region. And, like, to me, there's some type of correlation between those things. And it's like, we become, and this doesn't really, it doesn't really equate nowadays, but we become the land and the environment that we're in, and the land that we work, and the things that we do. So
a part of me, I get nervous about our future, because 2024, nobody's working the land like they. So we're losing that aspect of society.
Yep. And
those tough as nails dudes like your great grandpa, and so every time I come across somebody that's worked their butts off like that, there's a guy named Roy Hunter, and he was a State Farm agent that Alexis worked for, but he was a rancher his whole life.
Yeah.
Ranchers might not be the right word, but, like, he was hard working cowboy.
Yeah.
And then he's an insurance salesman also. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
But I always told him, and I tell other guys that I come across, Dory Mogolinsky, you got to write a book. Or an audio or something that tells kind of your life story. Because we need to hold on to those things and learn from them. And I don't know.
Yeah. We're becoming men in a time so different than even just our dads did. And the modern world is providing its own challenges to what that looks like for us, especially in probably the next 10 to 15 years, which is in my head when I feel like I'll really be a man. Like there's something in my head that's like, 50 is where you really become a man.
Salt of the earth, right?
Yeah, like 45, 50. But yeah, I think it's all going to bring its own challenges because of all the other distractions that we have to deal with in today's world. But I don't.
So I'm not
I
even
don't
going to
think I
get
have a good
into
point about that.
Not even going to get into these couple things, but I'm going to say them. The trans thing.
Yeah.
The men versus women, the racial, all those things. We're not going to get into that. It does.
It's on the landscape.
Yeah, it's there, and it's something we've got to deal with 2024. And as a man, in my head, I don't let it get there. Like you hear it in media, white male is at its lowest low or whatever, and I'm like, whatever. Like I don't even think like that. I just live my own life and try to tone out the rest of that. But
yeah, the measure of a man, again, it's like not being so influenced by those outside pressures that it starts to change who you are. And I think for me, it's like it's there and it's present in everything we do, obviously. But I also only have so much bandwidth for it that I have to be careful of the media that I ingest because
100%.
As much as exactly what I'm saying, like, don't want to be influenced. I am influenced by the TikTok feeds, that I get into and stuff like that. And my big kick lately in whether it be politics, gender, you name it, whatever. It's like I only find myself frustrated in conversations with people when those things are the topics, when somebody is so staunchly set in one vein that they can't that they can't take into consideration other viewpoints and a religion. Like it's really hard for me in times to have conversations from a religious standpoint because I find myself wanting to just challenge
everything
somebody who is so staunchly set in a certain standpoint that it then just becomes a debate instead of a conversation. So I think that's my biggest deal with all of it. Is it's like I don't want to be influenced, but I also want to be willing and able to take a broader approach and have a broader perspective, because I do have people in my life that are gay and that live in the LGBTQ world, and
who doesn't anymore?
And I love those people, man.
100%. Yeah, we kind of touched on that
before
you got here. Yeah. That. What was it? We were talking about the media or the news, I guess.
Oh, yeah, politics. Because I know I can get fired up, and I'm just as susceptible to propaganda as anybody. But Jordan kind of inspired me the other day, man. I got rid of all my news apps, and I know politics are important. I know it influences our lives on a daily basis, whether we know it or not. But I was giving it undue time in my mind, and all it was doing was making me angry or fearful or
anxious.
Anxious. Just this frustration with society that when you turn it off. I just did this like 3 days ago, and immediately, I'm feeling lighter, kinder to people, less fired up in my day-to-day life when I'm not consuming media telling me how to feel about stuff or on a day-to-day basis, man. Yeah. I think it's good to not give it too much time and too much leeway in your heart. Yeah. And it's hard to keep it out. You think, I'll just be impartial. I just want to, be informed, but it's very hard to be informed without being just getting down the rabbit hole and getting angry about stuff. And it's a hard tightrope.
It is, man. It's so hard.
All of our media right now, like who do you trust? Yeah. Nobody's got the answer to that. Yeah.
Man, one thing that helped me be open-minded about things like Blake was talking about and have a bigger perspective is a long time ago back in my party days and when I was being a dummy, but me and a couple buddies, a guy named Nick Howard, who's now a lawyer in Portland, Grayson Smith, who you guys actually went to high school with, and a couple other guys, we would sit around and we'd be drinking or whatever, but we would pick sides on issues, and you always had to take a side you weren't very familiar with, like pro-abortion, anti-abortion. Okay, you're pro-abortion, go. And you would try to make your case for it, and then the other people would argue, or, all right, Islam, or whatever. And you make your case for these things, and, man, it makes you realize real fast that, man, you don't know enough about these topics to even debate them, and so you'd go study up, and over weeks, we would just do it for fun. We didn't have anything to do. We didn't have a TV in our house. But, man, you just realize how much you don't know. And everybody believes what they believe for a reason. It's good to make you be open-minded. Like you say, challenge people that are in that. I need that in my life. I do that to myself all the time. Like, why do you think that? Why do you believe the way you do? And then you got to go down the rabbit hole.
Thinking you have it all figured out. Yeah. Just to realize at some point, oh, crap, I don't have it all figured out.
No, even stuff that I spend the majority of my time studying, like the Bible or things like that, man, I know so little in the grand scheme of things that you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to be challenged and not get angry about it, or at least get angry and then, figure it out and go wrestle with it.
I do love that we are essentially on a female-driven podcast, only talking about man stuff.
Yeah.
That was on purpose. You're welcome.
That was by design?
I figured. Okay.
She had some topics, and I was like, nope.
What were her topics?
She wanted, one of them was, which we do need to talk about at some point. We don't have to this time. We could do it next time, but yes. How talented are our wives?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alexis wanted you to talk about how talented they are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Talk about how great I am.
She is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's what I was thinking about is, I actually am a better man because of the women in my life. I could probably make an argument that the women, my wife, and the other women in my life that I respect, have actually challenged me to be a better man than other men.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah, they definitely have a different perspective. You said it earlier that, I think we all have this feeling inside of us as guys that we have to prove ourselves, that we, you have to prove how manly you are. I remember getting made fun of a lot when I was younger because I like to read, and especially I would read Shakespeare and stuff, and people would call me gay, and they thought, and so it confused my version of, being intelligent's not manly, that's not, you shouldn't do that. Shakespeare's not manly, and you want to prove it, and I think women have kind of an outside perspective on that can greatly help, that...
I think as a little boy, we all struggled with how to be a man. Yeah, and it was always a constant, how do I? And yes, 100% on the reading thing, and making fun of or getting made fun of it, being good at reading. Later in life, not even that far, 20s, I was God, I wish I could read better. So I'm super jealous at 38 now.
But
'cause
again,
I'm
that was
terrible.
modeled by my mom. She read all the time. She was always reading novels. She was reading, some sketchy romance novels a lot of times, but she was reading. It was
Yeah.
important to her. That's what she did in her spare time. She taught me how to love reading, and now that's my favorite way to spend time. It's just
I'm
reading
super
anything I
jealous
can get my
'cause
hands
I'm
on.
not a reader, and
Yeah.
I wish I was. I wish I don't put forth the time or effort, I think,
Yeah.
because I'm always busy, and I need to.
Reading is kind of the equivalent for me of like sitting with my thoughts. Like I'm not good at just like sitting down and not finding a way to distract myself. And that's why I think I end up drifting towards like projects, because a project, there's a clear objective and a clear goal with it. And it's like, I can do this thing. But having that contemplative time, whether it's journaling, actually some of the most, I would venture to say like some of the healthiest people that I've experienced are people who like journal frequently. And they sit with their thoughts and they sit with their emotions. And the model of the man that I knew growing up through my teens, that was not it.
Right.
And, and again, it's like, I want to be, I know and I see the things within myself that are my weaknesses. And so in my mind, that's the strength. Is like, that's one of the strongest things, is the ability to sit with an emotion and just figure out how you feel. And like I just don't do that very well. And so the reading is kind of like that for me. It's like you actually just have to sit down and do that and like slow down, slow your pace, clear your expectations, and be with that thing. And so the older I get, the more I avert to reading. I'm not a good reader either. Like I am the type, like I kind of think I'm probably a little bit dyslexic. I used to have a couple of guys, a team of guys, and I would just say this stupid stuff all the time. They were a good bit younger than me, and so in order to feel like I could relate to them, sometimes I was just like spicing things up, and I would just say the random stuff that probably shouldn't be said, but I thought like would bring levity to the situation and the environment. And so sometimes I just say stuff to see like what the reaction is going to be, or but I said like I think you'd be surprised how many learning disabilities I have, and I still manage to get by.
That's funny.
And I think that's true. Like, I feel like I have a lot of learning disabilities. I have to reread stuff a lot. But reading is good.
Reading is good.
And I wish I would have had kind of that example growing up of the fact that literature is so important to figuring out who we are.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, man, to me, it's so important to being open-minded and empathetic. Like you said earlier, we've all grown up from this very specific region with it in the Bible Belt with very specific beliefs. And, we grow up in this, and I've never lived anywhere else. Right. And so to really experience outside perspectives, the easiest way is to read and to spend time in somebody else's mind and how they view the world. And man, it challenges you, to run into these ideas that, you may not agree with, and they challenge you. And then you have to go back and wrestle. Why do I believe the way I believe? One of the most influential books I ever read it is certainly not a Christian book, but it's called Ishmael by a guy named Daniel Quinn. And a guy at Hastings gave it to me. I was just working at Roasters, and one of the dudes that worked in Hastings, don't know his name or anything, but I thought he was cool, thought he was very well read, respect him. I said, hey, man, what do I need to read next? And he's like, oh, I got you. And he brought me that book, and I read it. Man, it just forces you to figure out why you believe the things that you believe. And that, man, I was young, when I read that. And I still go back to it from time to time just to check my perception of the world and how I'm dealing with stuff.
in my opinion. That's super healthy.
It'll make you wrestle with Christianity, though, for sure. But that's good. I think you should. I think you should ask questions. I think you should be challenged, like you were talking about.
I think that's what's wrong with religion in general is it's black and white.
Well, unhealthy religion is black and white.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good way
exactly
to
what I
phrase
was
that.
trying to say. I hate religion. I do. I'm a believer. I love Jesus. Like, we could go on and on about that. Point is to constantly think outside the box and think, why do I think this way? Why do I believe this way? I think that's healthy. I mean, obviously, never mind. I was going to get into some religion stuff, and I'm like, let's not go there.
Yeah.
We do need to probably wrap it up.
We do.
How do you end a podcast?
I don't know.
It's going to be funny when she takes this hour and cuts it down to like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I might be a little upset.
Yeah, Alexis, just please don't make us sound like grumpy old men. I think at the least it's forcing a bunch of guys, men, to sit down and process their emotions.
Real talk, huh?
So I think, this is my journal.
That's funny. Thank you all for wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And helping Alexis with all kinds of projects y'all both helped with. It means a lot to her and me, obviously.
So Jordan comes to me after this podcast and he says,
After the one he did?
yes.
Okay.
He's like, I think that went well. I had fun. And he goes, you want to know what we talked about? And I was like, sure. And he goes, celebrity crushes. And so I laugh, right? I think it's funny.
Yeah.
He's like, we're talking about Ryan versus Ryan too.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's hilarious, and thought it was so funny.
Yeah.
Then he brought up Ana de Armas, and I was like, livid.
Who is that?
So look her up real fast.
Okay.
She's in The Gray Man.
What is that?
Oh, it's got
God.
Ryan Gosling in it.
How am I so far out of touch? Okay. Ana de Armas. Okay.
And
Oh, she's pretty.
yeah. So he tells me,
Oh, I know who she is. Yeah.
you should watch that with Gavin. Me and Lennox have watched it like 6 times together.
Okay.
But I got so fucking jealous.
Really?
Yes.
Y'all kind of look alike, though, actually.
I was like, dude, I need to go get a bob, get my hair cut,
Whatever.
and cover up my gray hair. Like,
So
I'll
you
do
were
it.
jealous when he told you that?
Yes.
Or whenever did they list?
Okay. So a few nights before, him and Tanner and Lindsay, we're all in my backyard. We're cooking out. And I bring up Celebrity Crush, or maybe Tanner did. I don't know. Long story short, I told Tanner I really like Ana de Armas. And so we pull her up and we're doing all this stuff. So Jordan claims he was not there. And he was. He was cooking a lot, but still, subconsciously, you were there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm more mad that he took my celebrity crush.
If you're jealous about that or her.
Yeah. Or the fact that Ana de Armas could come over here and be like, oh,
Still
hey,
hit it on her.
Jordan.
Hit on
And
her.
I would be like, I was mad. I stormed off in my Jeep. Like, I left for 2 hours and then came back and was like, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
So we can't talk about Celebrity Crush anymore. No, I'm just kidding. We can. Emma Stone was mentioned, and she's great.
She's hilarious.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, and so I loved what Blake said about her because she was Blake's. He said that anybody who can make you fall in love within a 90-minute period
Yeah.
has to have mad props.
Yeah. She has a Jennifer Lawrence quality, or I guess Jennifer Lawrence has, because she's been around longer, Emma Stone. Meaning, like, it's so charming and endearing how quickly they make fun of themselves.
Yeah.
And, like, humility is their first.
Yeah.
Like, it's just disarming. Like, I feel like I could be best friends with either one of those people.
I would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have always been very surprised about the Emma Stone like people who did crush on her because I didn't really see it. But as far as the humor, and I think about, have you seen that movie, Crazy Stupid Love?
Yes.
In the beginning, I'm like, wah, wah. And then in the end, I'm like, I love you.
Yeah, I know. So I don't ever watch the Oscars ever, but Blue is a big movie person.
Okay.
And so we watched it this last season. I guess it was in March. Anyway, she won an award for Poor Things.
Okay. Yeah,
like
I haven't
lead
seen it
actress
yet.
or something. Oh my God, that's so great.
Is it?
It's so not at all what I expected.
Okay.
Nothing what I expected. But
Cool.
it's freaking hilarious and it's really good. But she was walking up the stage to accept her award and her dress came undone in the back.
Oh, no.
And she handled it like a freaking pro, man. She
Nice.
was so like, told everybody right away as soon as she got to the mic, she was like, my dress just broke. But anyway, you know, like,
Right?
yeah, it was great. Yeah, it just
Aw.
made me love her even more.
Yeah. I'm a fan now, especially after what Blake said.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they were going into the Westerns, which no, I'm not going to go there. Second, what does it mean to be a man?
I will say one thing that kind of blew me off my feet is when Blake said he would almost argue that the women he respects in his life have challenged him more to be a man rather than the men in his life.
Yeah.
And in a weird freaking way, I can see that. Like, I feel like that's where, you know, this is the stupid saying, and people say it all the time, and it's so cliche, but I think that it is very true that what makes a good man is a good woman. I think what makes a man is a person who's respectable and respectful and doesn't take too many things too seriously and is able to be in touch with their emotions or learn new things. They're not going to say that they're not being a know-it-all, I guess. And
Yeah.
anyway, I think that that's what makes a man. And I think that anyone who does have a good woman in his life is, you know, he's going to end up a good man.
Right.
But the way he worded it, and then after thinking about it for a second, I was like, wow, that's like profound,
Yeah.
you know? So, and I don't want to give us all the credit, but it's hard not to.
Yeah. But it also made me think of this huge feminist movement or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
It's hard for me to get on board with that, but I think it's because I do have a man who is extremely caring and is all about me living out my dreams,
Yeah.
is all about his family. It's so hard for me to sit here and be like, well, women empowerment. Yes, but also I don't know any better. I don't know any better that it took me a bit to figure out that being nurturing and being caring and loving, that was in us innately.
Right.
Like from the very beginning of humanity,
Right.
men have had to be the provider.
Right.
All the women like advocates for working out and all that stuff, they always go back to, well, we had to run from the tiger. You know, they
Right,
go
the
that
primitive
far back.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
So why are we not going to the primitive time as far as like how men act? Like,
Right.
yes, they have to provide for us. The fact that they are gentle and loving and caring and passionate, like sweet
Right.
or good to us
Right.
is crazy. Like they
Yeah.
have grown so much.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, that's in me to be nurturing. And it took a long time to figure out like, it's not a quality I should be ashamed of.
Exactly.
The views are
here's the
contradictory.
thing, too. Something that you may have already recognized, or it's something that I actually just now recognized as you were saying all of that. And you and Perry are similar in this way, meaning y'all are both very, very independent, and you are just bound and freaking determined to do whatever it takes to build the life that you want. And you both have husbands that are fully supportive of that. Like,
Yeah.
they see your talent and they see your commitment to whatever it is that you're doing in the moment, and they are behind you 100%.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's a rare dynamic. That's a rare relationship, I think for people to have. I don't think that that's very common. I feel like a lot of times strong women feel like they need a strong man, and not that Jordan's not strong or that Richard's not strong, anything like that. But I mean, like, tough guy who's never going to show any sort of emotion and like act like a freaking ape or something,
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what I feel like. You and Jordan have a really good balance and are able to build each other up in the best ways,
Yeah.
And I think that that's just a rare dynamic in a rare relationship. But that being said, it is possible for someone who does believe that women can do anything and isn't necessarily a feminist to have this partner, this, yin to your yang or whatever you want to call it.
The mac to my cheese.
Yeah. The peanut butter to your jelly.
The luck to my charms.
But anyway, yeah. And I will say, Blake was talking about like his grandpa and how he grew up in the rough war, plains or whatever. And what?
Okay, I want you to finish that, but it reminded me of a story.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then Jordan started talking about Roy, who is also like one of the like toughest men that ever existed.
Yes.
And then I think about like my dad who went to Vietnam and, saw children being killed and had to kill people himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
They never really talk about it. But that's the thing. Like men of that generation, they were never taught to coping strategies with stuff like that. Like, I'm sure there were times in Roy's life where life was too hard, where it was too much.
Yeah.
And,
he had his son passed away.
Right. And again, being of that generation, I think what you are taught and learn is you just like put your big girl pants on and move on. Like you just have to, that's how you deal with it, is you just get over it. And nowadays it's more common and even thought to be, of value to like talk about your emotions, work through things, journal,
I know.
See a counselor, like things like that. And to me, I don't think anyone is less of a man than Roy if they do something like that. But I also fully believe that opens up another side of a man that should be more in existence and should be more appreciated.
Yeah. And that's one thing he didn't talk about with Roy, which is so crazy that when they were doing this podcast, I saw Linda, Roy's wife, like while they were doing the podcast. I saw her
oh my God.
shopping.
And you talked to her?
We hung out and she was like,
no way.
I know. She was like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm fixing to go. And I was like, actually with Jamie. And she goes, what are y'all doing? And I was like, well, we're doing a podcast. And I go, yeah, we just talk about weird stuff. And she goes, well, honey, you've always been a little weird.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, but that did remind, that I was trying to say that if I ever wanted a good sermon, all I had to do was be like, Roy, what does this mean in the Bible? And I mean, my entire work day was church.
Yep.
Yeah. And so he was so incredibly passionate about his family, about God, and about the land. And he's just seriously such an awesome dude.
Yeah.
But that reminded me of the story of when we first started working at State Farm. Did I get this wrong? It was like right when The Office started, the TV show.
Yes.
And so we're always playing all these jokes on each other.
Yes.
So I remember I stapled your Post-its together, like all of them. But I remember you hiding under a desk.
Yes.
Okay, tell me this so that I don't.
So yes, you and Megan pranked me and you stapled my Post-its. You taped my phone down so that if I tried to answer the phone, I would like pick up the whole thing and not just the receiver. Hold on, there's something else. Oh, my desk calendar. You changed the month and like wrote all the same appointments, like things on my calendar that I had before, so it looked like the same, and I had no idea that it was that it was a totally different month. Like no clue.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't figure that out for like weeks after. And then one day I walked up to Megan and I was like, y'all did that? And she was like, yeah. And then I don't know, there was a couple other things. I don't remember. But yeah, I think my retaliation was to prank Megan.
Yeah.
And she had gone to lunch or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember whose idea it was. Maybe it was mine. I don't know. But to like get under her desk. And so whenever she came and sat down, I could reach out and grab her. And yeah. So that was my.
But it didn't work out that way.
Nope. What happened?
Didn't Roy come and sit down?
That's what it was. Oh my God. Oh my God. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So instead of Megan coming to sit down, yeah. And you were like supposed to like warn me whenever she pulled up or something. And I feel like you knew Roy was about to sit down and you didn't tell me anything.
Oh, dang. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And yeah, so instead of Megan coming to sit, Roy sat down and I was like just face to face with, you know.
The fact you're sitting right by his legs.
Yeah. And just underneath the desk. I mean, it was so hilarious.
And he caught you, right?
Yes. And he was like, what? And I was like, and I was already so uncomfortable around him. I just felt so intimidated
scared of him.
I felt so intimidated by him. And so for that, honestly, I do feel like that probably broke the ice for us.
Yeah.
And everything was kind of better after that. But yeah, I forgot that it was Roy. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing.
I thought I was making that part up, and I was like, "This is too good. I need to figure out what Jamie." Yeah, man, Megan.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah, we need to have her on.
Yeah, I think I've like sent her a schedule, and she's just like, "Cool." Like she doesn't care.
She's too busy being a